This video is brought to you by Drio. And would you look at that? We even got a package from them. This thing's got me excited, and that's because it is officially summer here in Atlanta. And in the summer, this shop gets pretty hot, pretty stagnant. And inside this box is an awesome air circulator fan. As you can tell, extremely difficult to assemble. Now we're gonna talk about these later in the video, but for now, I'm gonna put one right here-ish and another one here-ish. Now about the drift truck. Now, if you guys remember, late last year, we rushed to get this thing finished for its first drift event as Drift Truck V2, Fall Double Down. We barely made it. We street tuned the truck at like midnight the night before the event, got to the event at like 2 a.m., slept in the parking lot, but we did make it, and the drift truck ripped all weekend without a single issue, really. Now after that, and this is the last time you saw the drift truck, we took it to a local drift event. And unfortunately, it immediately had a very strange, very critical wiring issue. Upon throwing it into the first corner, the truck lost all sorts of electrical power and just totally shut off. We couldn't figure out what it was at the event, so we trailered it back here to the shop, and that's when I found out it had just blown a fuse. That's where the last video of the drift truck left off. I thought it was fine, I thought it was fixed. Well, off camera, we took it to that local drift event again. It had the same issue. Popped the fuse, lost all sorts of electrical power, wouldn't run, wouldn't drive, so we replaced the fuse with a bigger fuse. It drove for a little bit, then popped that fuse. What did we do? We replaced the fuse with a bigger fuse. Eventually, we put a 30 amp fuse in I think a 10 amp location. I think we all know what happened next. No fire, no nothing like that. It just wouldn't work. For some reason, the fuse wouldn't pop, but something, it wouldn't get power to the ECU. Pretty much the chassis would have power, headlights and stuff would work, but the ECU could not communicate with the engine, and nothing was actually firing, no plugs, no injectors. And so, as you guys have seen in the background of videos, it sat. And it sat because I was pretty demotivated to work on it again. We had just gotten it finished after working on it for almost a year, and then boom, some random wiring issue. And we all know as car enthusiasts, wiring is the worst thing to diagnose. It's really difficult, and in addition to that, this drift truck has a custom harness made by a different person, and I have absolutely no idea what anything does. I don't know how the guy built it. I don't know what he used to do what. It's a complete mystery. And so in order to figure out that wiring issue, I would have to disassemble the truck, and I did not feel like doing that. So it sat. But here we are, and I'm now yet again ready to work on it. So we're gonna do two things. Well, we're gonna do one thing, and it's going to accomplish two tasks. We're gonna disassemble the truck back down to a bare frame. Now that is going to hopefully allow us to find this wiring issue. I'm assuming there's just gonna be a burnt wire, a crushed wire, something simple. But while the truck is disassembled and we're searching for this wiring issue, we're also going to paint the frame because it's bare metal right now, it's rusting, and in order to have a finished drift truck, we gotta paint it. And boy, I'm excited to show you guys the colors we're going with and the custom wide body we're gonna build. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Without any delay, let's start disassembling this thing. So the drift truck is pretty much fully disassembled. We still have some wiring in here, plus some of the intercooler lines and other hoses. But that's actually good because now we can finish the chassis. It's really sucked disassembling this thing because I feel like I never really got to experience it much. But now at least we can make it better. Because right now, the majority of this wiring of these hoses and some of the wiring and hoses in the back are just, zip tied to the frame. And so we're going to make mounts for those. We're also going to build a bash bar in the front and a bash bar in the rear. And with that, we can properly mount the front bumper and make a jack point for the front and the rear. And then we're gonna do some other little things, mount stuff, fix holes, etc., etc. And then we can start painting. But chassis first. So I'm gonna get this thing pushed over to the fab area, get these fenders off so we can get access to the wiring and start making some mounts. With that, all of the inner fender well tabs are done. As you can see, nicely holds all the wiring up away from the wheel. You don't have to have zip ties running around the tube, so from the inside of the engine bay, you don't see anything. And same thing over here with intercooler lines. Looks pretty good. And now for the bad news. I checked over all the wiring and I haven't found a single thing that looks stretched, squished, pinched, cut, burnt. All the wiring looks fine. So there's no evidence of a short anywhere, and thus our wiring mystery is still a mystery. So it's looking more and more like we're gonna have to make a new chassis harness, possibly a new engine harness. Maybe we'll find something under the dash. Now there are a few more tabs I'm going to weld in this engine bay. I'm gonna weld more of these on the outside of the frame to hold the main coolant lines that run to the rear mount radiator. We're gonna have to make sure that they clear the tire, of course. And then the power steering lines go right inside the frame, so I'm gonna make one right there. And then I'm going to make a lot of very simple tabs, kind of like that one right there, just like a 1-bolt tab, to just miscellaneously zip tie wires. The goal is to pretty much be able to hide everything behind and under the tubes, so that when you just look at first glance, it's a tube chassis. You don't see the wiring, don't see the hoses, don't see anything. So far, so good. So the coolant line tabs are added, power steering tabs are added, and then I have a couple of miscellaneous tabs added just to zip tie stuff too. You can kind of see it. But now that the front chassis fabrication was pretty much finished, it was time to continue with disassembling the truck by removing the wiring, the hoses, and the interior. Also, look at that fan do work. Well, with the truck totally disassembled, the front end stuff done, and the back end pretty much all ready to go, there's one more thing. But first, I want to talk about these Drio fans, because they are this video's sponsor. Now, these Drio fans have a couple of awesome features that make them very unique and very special. For one, they are a fan both for cooling and for circulating air. They have very good air speed and far-reaching wind. For instance, I mean, you can see I'm on the other side of the shop, right? Holding up the piece of paper. It's moving. Because I can feel the breeze all the way over here. It's quite nice. Now, normally with powerful fans, you have loud noise. You ready? Pretty sure you can hear that, yeah? But with a Drio fan, this is on turbo mode, and I am literally right next to it. And you can barely hear it, which is nice for life, but it's especially nice for me because I'm filming and audio quality is actually important. Now, since these are circulating fans, they do also oscillate. They oscillate up to 150 degrees horizontally and up to 120 degrees vertically. So they cover a huge amount of square footage. But ultimately, my favorite thing about these fans is that they are smart fans and they have a really awesome app that works with, oh, turn the fans on.
Okay.
That one's going. You can't tell that one's going because the oscillation's not on, but that one is also going. I mean, how cool is that? Might seem like a silly feature. Turn the fans off.
Okay.
But that is super nice for me because sometimes I'm doing things, whether it's filming or welding, where I have to turn the fan off, but I forgot. I don't feel like getting up. But that's just the Alexa side of things. Their app is also really awesome. You can control each fan separately. You can see the temperature of the air around the fan. You can create schedules, timers. You can set up custom modes that have the fans react to the air temperature. You know, turn up when it gets hotter, turn down when it gets cooler. You can do a whole bunch of stuff with the oscillation. You can also aim the fan with the app. And that's awesome because say I'm over here. Ah shit, it's not pointing the right direction. Here, let me move it a little bit. Oh, right there, yeah. But maybe I don't want it pointing at me because it's annoying. So I'll just, you know, have it go point the other direction. So all those little features add up to making a really awesome fan. And with 2 of these in this shop, the game is changed. Now, if you guys are interested, you can check out the link in my description and up there in the cards for more information, or you can scan this QR code. In addition to that, you can use my code Gingium10 to get an extra $10 off your order. And in addition to that, they're also doing a Mother's Day sale, which can save you up to $110. So lots of big savings for this awesome fan. And they also have an Amazon store. And they're gonna be giving away 1 fan to one of you guys. If you're interested, all you have to do to enter, you gotta write a comment in the comment section below that says, I want a Drio fan in my blank. Preferably the blank is a room, like your bedroom or your shop. And then Drio will randomly choose one of you guys in the comment section below. Huge thank you to Drio for sponsoring this video. Huge thank you to them for these fans. But let's get to work on this bash bar. So first things first, we got a new bumper. Bumper's not anything special. It's not super clean, but look how straight it is. No dents, no bends, it's a straight bumper. And that's rare for these trucks. The reason we needed a straight bumper is because we are going to be building a bash bar, and said bumper is going to be mounted to said bash bar. So it all has to be straight and even and level. The bash bar is going to come off the 2 main chassis tubes and kind of be in the shape of the bumper, and it will have a little jacking point so we can jack up the front end nice and easily, and it will be removable. Before we start welding to the chassis, we're gonna go ahead and bend up a tube that fits nicely up against the top of the bumper all the way around, so it follows the curve. Then we'll bolt the bumper back on, use the factory bolts to then weld the bar together, and you know, honestly, it's the first bash bar I've ever built. Let's see how it goes. Got a beautiful start to a bash bar. Now in order to slot it into this new bumper, we're gonna have to cut the top off of the factory mounts. So we'll cut the top off so we can slide the bar in there and start actually getting it into place. So now we have to make some brackets that bolt it to that part of the bumper and to this part of the side of the bumper. That way, that tube supports the bumper fully. Then we can work on the chassis part. There we go. Bash bar is in there. Kind of put the front end together just to make sure everything lines up, and it does. Lines up nicer than it ever has. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's not bolted in. But with the fender, I used to have to like zip tie and jerry rig it to look that good. Oh man, does this thing look dorky without a front lip though. But now that that is in there mounted, we can build, you know, the connection to the chassis. So somehow the tube has to kind of come off of here, go to this bar, and be removable. So I think I'm actually going to tie it into this bar, because this is a nice sturdy bar, and it's mounted in a good spot, and it lines up perfectly with the main bash bar. And there's not really much more room on this to add any more mounts. Pretty much just connect it with some tubes, do a cool little gusset plate, and then we'll bring it down for a jack point and tie it in to the bottom of the frame there to kind of triangulate. Because obviously if we just had it tied in there and you try to jack it up, it'd probably bend something, so. I'm liking the way it looks. It's crazy just, you know, how nicely it fits with the way that I built it using the factory bumper. Now, we can remove these old rusty parts off of the bumper, and then we're going to build the jack point. That is sweet. And believe it or not, those brackets weighed like 20 pounds each. We removed a lot of weight from the front of this thing. All right, so now we're gonna remove the entire thing. So there's the bash bar, and this is the beginning of our jacking point. And then I built this, which is A, the point where the jack will actually touch, and B, the third mount for the bash bar. It goes in like so, and then now we just have to build some tabs for that. And then this thing is pretty much done. We'll do some triangulation and weld it all the way up. And so the bash bar is all welded up and reinstalled. I even added a little foot for the jacking point. We got ourselves a jack right here. Oh yeah, no flex whatsoever. Up it goes. That's going to be awesome. I also added this little turn up, so in case that ever bottoms out, because it's now the lowest part in the front end, hopefully it'll just kind of skip up instead of get caught. So, well, I don't know. But that's going to make doing front end work, changing front tires, all that kind of stuff at the track so much easier. Now that the front is done, however, we can move on to the rear. I'm gonna do things a little bit different back here. Since this is more likely to be impacted by something, I'm gonna make the bash bar as simple as possible. So if we do smash it, it's easy to replicate. It's just going to be a tube that follows the inside line of the back end. I'm going to integrate the jacking point into the chassis itself. It's gonna be non-removable. It's just going to be a little U-bar that goes from one frame to the other and has the jacking point, you know, right about here. Not that low, but you get the idea. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that first. Well, there's the rear jacking point, just a little bit lower than the bed. Up it goes. The only thing about this is that with the helper springs and such, this rear suspension has quite a lot of droop, so you have to lift it quite high to get the wheels off the ground. Normally, I would just use the actual pumpkin as the lifting point, but you know, when this rear end is fully assembled, there's lots of stuff in here, so it can be annoying, but we still might do that, you know. It's always nice to have a rear jacking point, so we'll see. But now, rear bash bar. We've got just enough tube. So the rear bash bar is in. It's very simple, but I'm super happy with the way all that turned out. Now at first I thought I'd be done now, but as I'm working, I'm remembering more and more things we have to add to the chassis. Just like we did on the front, we have to add some tabs on the rear for wiring. Unless if I want to zip tie stuff around the, you know, big box frame, I have to add it. So I'm gonna add it. We'll add a few coming down this side of the frame, then going across the rear bar for the taillights over there, and then on the gas tank mount as well a bit. So lots of little tabs added so that we can avoid stuff like this, zip ties around frames. And last but not least, gonna weld a tab to hold the power steering reservoir. This goes right here. It was previously just zip tied to this part of the chassis. And for now, we're just gonna add this steel tab right here to the frame. And then we can, you know, weld a new bracket onto the reservoir when we go to reassemble the truck. And with that, I believe the drift truck chassis is 100% done, fabrication-wise at least. And now we have a whole lot more work to do to paint it. But that's not going to happen in this video. In fact, it's not going to happen in the next video. In the next video, we're gonna get the paint booth ready to go. That means installing, you know, an air system, a ventilation system, all the tools and just, you know, workspace. And then in the video after that, we're going to prep this thing, paint pretty much everything besides the exterior. Frame, tube chassis, interior cage, that's all getting painted. It's gonna be a lot of work, but the results are going to be awesome. It's unfortunate that we've discovered that we will essentially have to be rewiring the entire thing, but at least by the end of this project, everything will have been done by yours truly. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to Drio for sponsoring this video yet again. Now, if you want to support the channel in another way, you can check out Patreon, where you'll get early access to videos, access to exclusive content, a free drift truck t-shirt, and a bunch of other stuff. Huge thank you to anyone who does that. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great one.